Alright, so today I'm going to do another video where I recommend a bunch of books by Latinx authors. I did this last year, I'll have that video down below. Some of my favorite books of all time are on that list. You really should check it out if you have not already. And this is a new edition because every year I really try to make sure that I am reading more works by Latinx authors. I'm Latinx myself. It's important to me. There really aren't enough authors, especially with an entire continent of authors in adult SFF, and so I always am trying to find some. There are some adult SFF on here, but it's difficult. A lot of these are going to be contemporary, young adult, and things like that. But this is just stuff that I read in the last year. I actually have some translated works this year, which had me really excited. I hope to keep that going next year because I just want to keep reading more translated works. And hopefully you can find something on here. This is, if nothing else, a diverse list in terms of genres. Like, we are all over the place here in terms of genre representation. But we're going to start with actually a classic, and this is Hour of the Star by Clarisse Lispector. She's a Brazilian author, a classic author, and I can see why. Even in a translation, I could feel how intentional her sentence structures were, her word choice, how she chose to place commas and periods. It was very fun to read just from that, and I'm not someone who usually likes that aspect of reading, but it was one of those times where it's like, man, I wish I did get to dissect this in a classroom with people. It's also nested narrative. We have this creator of a written piece and who's writing the story of this woman who gets hit by a car and her life. And a lot of, I think, Clarisse Lispector's upbringing in life is put into this character, although it's not directly autobiographical. And so not only do you get this insight into just this average life of this woman in Brazil, you also get the commentary of this narrator who's creating the story, who even wonders if they should be making this story. And it's only 90 pages, but it's a really fun exercise, and I enjoyed it. I highly recommend it, especially if you're someone like, I want to get into more classic translated works. This is a stunning one, and I think actually there are several translations. I think I have the cover that says the translator that I used. I'm sorry, I don't know the name right now. I will be getting better at that as I get into more translated works, I promise. But this was phenomenal. Really glad that Jocelyn put it on my radar, because Jocelyn sent this to me last year, or the year before for my birthday. Time's not real. I say that a lot, but it's truly so true. Time. The next one is It Would Be Night in Caracas. This is a Venezuelan translated that I read very recently. It is heavy. This is a story about a woman who recently lost her mother. She lives in Caracas in our contemporary times, maybe a little earlier than now, but it's around now. And then her home is invaded, and she has to deal with that. It's not a thriller. Like, I feel like if I say that, it sounds like a thriller, and it's truly not. It's actually just a contemporary literary fiction about a part of the world that is not a very safe place to be at times. It ebbs and flows how safe it can be to live in Caracas. I know this from my Venezuelan family, and it's a rough depiction of that. But at the same time, I loved the flashbacks parts of her life where we see Venezuela in the 1980s, the things that she loved about it, the complexities of the cultures that intermingled through immigration. I really loved her exploring her own identity because she has to grapple with her identity as she figures out, where do I go from here? My home has been taken. Where do I go? Because a lot of people who came in the 80s, they were immigrants, so they could go back to a country that they left potentially if that was an option for them. She was born and raised in Venezuela. Her parents were Venezuelan. Like, her home is no longer what she recognizes. So what does she do? And I really enjoyed it, but I don't think it would be for everyone. It's a really difficult topic. And also, I would say, and I say this in other videos, it's not nonfiction, but it is representing Caracas at its worst. Caracas is not always like this, but this can happen. And it just reminds me all the time how I'm so glad my family does not live in Caracas right now, because it's unfortunately kind of a nexus point for when things are at their worst, because it ebbs and flows in Venezuela. And to the point where, in our own news cycle, it keeps being brought up, every year or so, and people forget that it's still going on. A mess that primarily the United States was involved in making. So yeah, that's a topic for another day. But this, I do think, if you want some insight into contemporary Venezuela with some really good literary commentary on identity, this is a great read. The next one I'll talk about is Eita. This is a Brazilian speculative magazine. They publish in both Portuguese and English, and I love the project of it. Like, the fact that you could get access to speculative short stories from Brazilian authors translated to English. Yes, Sign me up. This issue didn't work for me super well just because it was mostly about food, and I feel like food fiction doesn't always work for me. But I'm definitely going to be looking into this magazine more in the future and highly recommend. You can easily get it from Amazon. And now we will switch into some short stories. I did say this is going to be a diverse group of genres, I believe, at the top of this video. And so now we are going into a short story collection of romance stories. And this is Amor Actually, I believe edited by Zoraida Cordova. I'm not actually sure if she's the editor, but she does have a story in here under her romance pen name. And there's a bunch of authors in here. And what it does is it takes the subplots of Love Actually and makes them Latine. Essentially, it takes place in New York City. It's not in London. But like the tropes of each of those stories are represented here with some twists. Not only are they going to be in Latine cultures, but they have some twists to the tropes that are there. Like one of them introduces polyamory to the situation. It's really fun, and it even has the Love Actually component of they all kind of are connected. There is a story at the end where you see a bunch of the characters in everyone else's short stories. So it's an anthology of romance short stories that kind of follow the Love Actually tropes that you see in that movie, but with twists. And it's fun. Like, it was a wonderful Christmas time. Like, truly, I had a lovely time reading this. And it also gave me some romance authors that I want to check out. So, if you want to sample some romance authors and you're looking for something Christmassy, highly recommend. Another short story that I read recently is Maria Maria. I really liked this one. This is more brujas, light magical realism, but it is more like fantasy or that genre blendy speculative that's hard to quite like place. Half of it's a novella, and I really like the novella. It's the titular story of the collection, and that's in kind of a futuristic California city that has gone through a climate disaster, but there's also some like bruja magic, so it's like dystopian futuristic fantasy, and I really like all of that blending there. And it also has a discussion of family and heritage and ancestry. It's a really cool blend of all of those things. So if you want that perspective of the Latina experience, like Southern California, it's wonderful. And now, kind of staying with fantasy, we'll go into Blanca y Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. I love their works. I need to read more of their works. I say this all the time, especially because like right now it's fall. And I feel like fall is when I should read all of their works, and I never do. Like I read this one in the middle of winter, and I read Dark and Deepest Red in the middle of summer, but they all feel like fall reads so far that I've read. And Blanca y Roja is like, takes place in fall. You can feel the leaves crisping in the book. Like truly, it's a fall book. So really, right now, if you're watching this video live and it's fall, you should definitely look into this. It's kind of a take, I think, on a fairy tale. I don't know the fairy tale really well, but these two sisters live together their whole lives, and they know one of them is cursed to become a swan. And one sister is the perfect, beautiful sister, and the other one is not. Now, that's not the thing that they think about with each other. It's just how the community and their families see the situation. So it's always seen that the ugly sister would become the swan. Like, that's just the assumption. And on the time period where this is supposed to happen, they've been trying to play with fate. Then everyone leaves, and we're kind of in this really weird contemporary fairy tale thing that I think Anna Marie McLemore does really well. And we have two other characters who kind of play a part in this fairy tale, and there's great discussions of gender identity and friendship and belonging, and it's so good. I really like Blanca y Roja. I wish I had read it in a better headspace. I need to get a copy. I need to get a copy of a lot of their works. Like one day when I have my own internal library, I just want to get all of their hardbacks because they're all so pretty and put them on my shelves so I can just pick them up and read them in an afternoon, because they also are those type of like short, breezy, immersive experiences. I highly recommend it. And if you're someone who's like, I don't usually read young adult because you don't feel like you connect to those experiences, I do say give this a try. It is closer to bridging that new adult gap, I feel. And also there's something timeless about fairy tale feeling things, at least to me. So I would give it a try. Next up is Sylvia Marina Garcia, my favorite Sylvia Marina Garcia, and that is Certain Dark Things. This is a vampire noir. It was lovely. I also listened to it, and this might be a case where maybe I would like a lot more of Sylvia Marina Garcia's works if I just did audiobook. But this is a story of this man who suddenly randomly meets a vampire, and it's in a city where vampires are not allowed to be. Vampires are real, and they are known, and they are not allowed to be in Mexico City. Except that they are, but it's like they can't get caught sort of thing. There's like an underworld to it all. And this man stumbles into this vampire's path and decides, I'll be your friend. I'll help you out. I think you're cute. He's such a sweetheart. He's just such a cute little cinnamon roll, and I just want to protect him at all costs. There's also a dog, a wonderful dog. And it's just him trying to get through this situation. There are vampire things afoot. Like, if you just wanted a cozier underworld, this is fun. It's also great for this time of year. I read it in October, and I'm like, yeah, this is the type of spook I wanted. Just this type of little vampire noir campy situation. And, it's in a unique setting, and it has really interesting vampire-like world building. Like, if you want that in your life, that was also very well done. And yeah, I can highly recommend the audiobook. It was a lovely time. Next up is my middle grade on the list, and that's The Last Contista. I adore this book. I'm so glad it won an award so more people have read it. This is about a young girl whose family is going to leave Earth to try and find another planet so the human race can survive because we messed up Earth. It's in my sci-fi video of humans messed up. Like, that's like the theme of almost all the books in that sci-fi video. And when she wakes up, the way that the ship is being run is not how she was expecting it to be, because things happened while she was in cryosleep. And so we have this young, resourceful child who has a love of stories and still holds all of the stories, even though she was kind of trained to be a chemist and a scientist for the future, trying to help gather the people who have not been corrupted by this influence and find a home, find a future. And I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of stakes. I had a lot of anxiety. Like, I guess I don't associate middle grade with that type of stakes, but like, I was very stressed even from early chapters. I felt anxious and claustrophobic and worried for our characters, even though it generally always did have like a hopeful tone. I was actually quite stressed, so I highly recommend it. Stunning production, great story. I'm someone who doesn't usually read middle grade, and I still gave it like 4.5 stars because I really was engrossed the entire time. And I love that here's like a Latina scientist character who loves storytelling as a main character. Like, I love that. Definitely going to keep that book on my shelf for years. Another sci-fi I'll talk about is Infamocracy. I've been talking about this one on the channel a little bit lately. It's been in a couple videos because I've been reading the sequel. This is a sci-fi story for people who really love meaty sci-fi books that really are about ideas. Like, if you're someone who just like loves Foundation by Isaac Asimov, you really need to try this out. It's truly like a study of what could micro-democracies be like. And micro-democracies, I think every 100,000 people get their own democracy they choose from. It has to work with this thing called information, which is probably like Google Plus or something like that. And we're on the eve of an election, and obviously things aren't going well. And we are following the people that work for information who are in charge of making sure things go as planned. Not necessarily like fraud or anything like that, but like trying to prevent fraud, trying to prevent things from going wrong in the system. And so it has like kind of the vibes of an action movie, but in a book. And it also has really high ideas. Like, I wouldn't say it was a page turner from the beginning, but it has that espionage feel to it. So it's a fascinating project. I don't think it's perfect. I have my issues with the series, but if you're someone who's looking for like a heavier themes focused sci-fi, you really need to check out Malka Older's works. She's incredibly intelligent in how she puts the world building together of the scenario and the thought experiment. Like, I can't speak highly enough about the thought experiment and the world building of this series so far. Now into my 2 nonfictions. I read 2 nonfictions last year. The first one I'll talk about is The Undocumented Americans. This is a great read, but it's a difficult read. This is a story written by a woman who is undocumented herself, and she purposefully is choosing to tell tales not of DACA recipients, but other undocumented Americans. And yeah, just their life, what they have to deal with for healthcare, what jobs that they get. And it's very revealing. It makes you, at least it made me, feel really poorly about how we treat people, just in general. Like, I don't necessarily think there's some things you need to prove to get treated like a human. I don't know. And I think actually most people, if you talk to them, would agree that, yeah, if someone is hurt, they should be able to get medical attention. If someone helps others in a community, they should feel free to belong to a community. In particular, there's a section about 9/11 first responders that is harrowing. Truly harrowing what undocumented people did, like, easily stepped up for to help their city. I mean, this was particularly undocumented people in New York City. New York City was their home. Like, that was their identity. It's like they were from Queens, like that they were going to help out, you know? And how they were treated, the situations that they were put in, how now the disdain we constantly put on them for election cycles, because it's not like there are so many undocumented immigrants that we have a huge problem in the United States. It's all fabricated. The numbers are not there. They're not causing the problems that politicians claim that they're causing. They're just people who don't get to be treated like people. And it really brings those things to light. It wasn't anything shocking to me. But it was a book that was as hard for me to read as I expected. I have family from Venezuela. They're not in the United States because it's very difficult for them to be here. I have a very personal relationship with how immigration has affected me and my family. So it hit heavy for me, especially one chapter that was about deportation. So it's very good. It's definitely about getting you connected to the human experience. So you're not going to get a book about facts. You're definitely going to get a book about human experiences. And there are some light memoir touches that the author puts in. The next one I'm talking about is actually just a straight up memoir. And it's one of the best things I've ever read. And that's In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I will read anything she writes. Like, truly. This I immersion read. I listened to her narrate the book while reading it. It is an interesting format. She basically does little vignettes, and she's basically processing her traumatic, toxic relationship with someone. And she does that kind of through different genres almost. She changes tenses a lot. It's something I'm definitely going to return to again and again, and I think it can be a very cathartic piece for people who, you know, maybe aren't in the healthiest of relationships, and you could see this in maybe, I don't know, at least for me, it helped me feel catharsis from some of my unhealthy relationships in the past. I felt some validation in terms of like, okay, I wasn't just seeing things here. I was not treated properly in these moments, I guess. In that case, it could also be very triggering for some people. So go in eyes wide open. It's about an abusive relationship. But it is so stunning in how it's written. And it's so unique in how it's presented. I love the project of it. I loved how I felt while I read it. I have no negative thoughts about this nonfiction. Also, it would feel weird to have negative thoughts about someone's lived experience, especially something so heavy, but I can just honestly say that for me it was a 5-star experience. So these are a bunch of books, and next year I hope to have another long list of books. Because, yeah, like I said, I always want to keep my eyes out for works that I'll be interested in by Latinx authors, because they don't get published, at least in my genres of choice, very often. If you want to leave an emoji, I don't know. Leave a house for In the Dream House. And let me know any recommendations you have based off books that I've liked that I might not have on my radar. Like, I try to search like everyone else, but like some books make it under my radar. I'm always here for the hidden gem, so feel free to put any recommendations down in the description. A lot of these I read based off recommendations. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.